Good morning and thanks for waking up with us here on GMC Weekend. It's Saturday, March 15th. I'm Alex Heaton. Wake you up this morning with the very thought that makes your skin crawl. The town of Atlantic Beach has now decided to accept the results from the November 12th council election. That's after two different election commissions held two separate elections. One was on November 5th, the other on the 12th. Now, each election had different winners, so a special meeting was held yesterday to decide which election commission should be considered the real one. Now to an update this morning on a nationwide Amber Alert that ended in the PD a week ago. The Maryland man accused of killing the mother of his children is now back in his home state after being caught in Florence. Baltimore County police say that Timothy Virts has officially been charged with killing Bobby Jo Cortez. Shortly after she was found dead, police sent out an Amber Alert for Virts and his daughter Caitlin. The two were found in the Colonial Inn in Florence on March 7th. Virts is being held in the Baltimore County Detention Center with no bail. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow, the couple accused of killing Heather Elvis will be back in court. This will be Tammy and Sydney Moore's bond hearing on the murder charges they both face. They're also charged with kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and indecent exposure. The husband and wife remain in two different jails this morning. Tammy's being held in Georgetown County, while Sydney remains in Horry County. Tomorrow's bond hearing will be at 10 a.m. and of course, we're going to be following the developments closely here at News Channel 15. For the latest information, head to your website, carolinalive.com. A Florence woman remains in jail this morning facing attempted murder charges. Deputies say Sherry Britt attacked a woman last night at her Florence home. They say she repeatedly hit the woman in the back of the head with a hammer. The victim is being treated at the hospital. Part of a three-day sweep working with state and local authorities, the Bureau arrested 150 people accused of trafficking and child prostitution. New this evening, we now know the name of a person killed in a moped crash last night in Williamsburg County. Williamsburg County Coroner Harrison McKnight says 49-year-old Eric Fulton was killed in that crash. Spring officially starts this week, if you didn't know that, and not without a few spring showers first.
Oh, isn't that perfect?
A bill to neuter the nation's health care law now heads to the Senate next week, although it's not expected to pass. The measure would rebuild the system for paying doctors and others who treat Medicare patients. It would also delay the penalty for failing to purchase coverage under the law. The bill passed the Republican-controlled House this week with a vote of 238 to 81. The bill makes it the 51st time in just 38 months the GOP-led House has voted on the Affordable Care Act. That's nearly 2 votes a month. Welcome back. It's almost 9:22 on this Sunday morning. There was a beautiful start to the weekend, but that has quickly gone away.
It has. Unfortunately, yesterday was so perfect.
Thank you, Maddie. One place that really doesn't need any additional water is that point in Garden City. It's supposed to be cleaned up today after it almost disappeared a few days ago, but the rain may get in the way. There was no beach to be found last week when ocean water took over. The waves were right up to the bulkheads of the homes near the end of the point. Piers and walkways also took a beating. Tens of thousands of them are thrown away each year, many ending up in overflowing landfills. We're just about an hour away from the start of the North Myrtle Beach's St. Patrick's Day Parade and Festival, but we've got a preview for you right now before the first float even takes off. WPDE News Channel 15's Mark Liverman joins us now live with the details on the event. Mark, what's going on now? Talk about breakfast in bed. You wake up in the morning and you go outside to find this in your front yard. It's a 7-foot-tall bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Tell us a little bit about the Blue Jeans Go Green campaign that you're working on. Now, Carolina This Week with Tim McGinnis is coming up in just about an hour here on WPDE News Channel 15. Here's Tim with a preview.
Today is the one-year anniversary of the fire at Windsor Green in Carolina Forest.
I was thinking, when was the last time we were this cold? Oh, right. It's only been a couple weeks.
Yeah, but the roller coaster begins.
True.
Slowly but surely we'll get to summer.
Yes, eventually.
All right, turning to sports this morning, Myrtle Beach's Everett Golson is back with the Notre Dame football team.
Here's Rich Krampanis with your morning sports.
A lot of things happening this week that we've been talking about. Spring officially gets underway. St. Patrick's Day officially tomorrow, and you have something that goes perfect with it.
I got something for you Irish people. Guess what? I got some green on the radar.
You play Candy Crush, you know how addicting it can be. 100 million people play it each day. And there's a warning this morning that some are getting too hooked, with families paying the price. A change is on the way, and it could bring another round of winter weather to parts of our area. President Barack Obama is tired of people calling him out for wearing his mom jeans. In a radio interview with Ryan Seacrest, he said he's gotten a bad rap ever since he wore, quote, loose-fitting jeans to throw a pitch at the MLB All-Star game. He says he learned his lesson and now his jeans fit very well. The topic of ill-fitting jeans came up when Ryan Seacrest asked the president about his recent trip to the Gap, where he did some shopping for his daughters Malia and Sasha.
Oh, actually, sorry. We're moving on to Samuel L. Jackson. I'm sorry. All right.
An incredibly awkward moment on TV.
What? What's that like? Just kidding.
Appropriate intro. Yesterday, a Los Angeles entertainment reporter interviewed actor Samuel L. Jackson, but he gets him confused with another actor, Lawrence Fishburne.
And he was not pleased. Here's that moment.
Thanks for joining us on DMC Weekend this morning, and don't forget about Carolina This Week with Tim McGinnis and News Channel 15 to 9 at 6. We've got that special report on the Windsor Green anniversary. Thanks for joining us this morning. We learn the tales of the morality of war, enhanced interrogation techniques, and the sisterhood of women who made tracking down Osama bin Laden possible.
Absolute, incomprehensible mayhem.
He quickly rose to the status of public enemy #1.
This is perhaps the most horrific sight anyone could have witnessed in a lifetime.
After the September 11th terrorist attacks, Osama bin Laden became a household name. But a group of CIA agents were tracking him before we even knew his identity, before that America's most wanted target was on his back, before the world even knew how big of a threat al-Qaeda was.
He was somehow involved, at least funding, a bunch of terrorist groups whose members had fought in Afghanistan, and then they were going overseas and they were blowing stuff up. All these little breadcrumbs were leading back to Peshawar, Pakistan, where bin Laden and a whole bunch of other groups were based. So we started kind of picking at those threads, and then it was just a process of taking all these little scattered bits and pieces and trying to fit them into some sort of picture that made sense. So we knew that this was actually a terrorist organization.
Cynthia Storer is now a professor at Coastal Carolina University, but she started her career at the CIA more than 20 years ago. Her work in the counterterrorist unit would be instrumental in tracking the leader of one of the most well-established terrorist groups in the world.
I had the Afghan account, so my job was to look at what was going on in Afghanistan and the networks that were flowing out of there. And so, of course, I kept following this worldwide movement, whatever this was.
She and a group of female colleagues, aptly named the Sisterhood, spent the better part of 2 decades connecting the dots between terrorist cells, following the breadcrumbs back to bin Laden.
When we first started following bin Laden, he was living in the open, but he didn't acknowledge to people, even his friends, that he actually was running a terrorist group. You know, he was the sort of the godfather figure. So we were collecting a lot of information, and we slowly began in the late 90s trying to disrupt the networks that he was associated with, and managed to disrupt some attacks. We focused a lot more on the kinds of operations that would disrupt attacks, capture people, send them to the countries of origin so they could be prosecuted, that sort of thing. We still weren't really trying to capture or kill bin Laden. It takes presidential authority to do that sort of thing. And I can understand presidents feeling like nothing had happened yet that would justify dropping bombs on somebody's head in a foreign country, right?
Where there were 2 huge buildings, 2 huge towers, there is now nothing.
Absolutely. Well, 9/11 ended that. The imperative after 9/11 obviously was to dismantle or destroy al-Qaeda.
And that's precisely where one of the most critically acclaimed motion pictures of the year begins. Catherine Bigelow's Zero Dark 30 shows the hunt for bin Laden through the eyes of Maya, a fictional CIA analyst.
The character in the film had that particular assignment, find that one courier, to try to get bin Laden himself.
If you're right, the whole world's gonna weigh in on this.
But was Maya based on a single female agent in the CIA? Or was the redhead on a tireless crusade to pinpoint bin Laden's exact location actually a compilation of the work that Storer and her colleagues spent so many years piecing together?
The job that this character does in the movie is several different people's jobs. They're using information that goes all the way back to stuff we developed in the 90s. So it really is an enormous team effort.
For someone so close to the operation for so many years, Storer says she has some conflicting thoughts about the film.
I'm very happy that they chose a woman as the lead character. That was great. It's not just the guys who shoot things, it's the women who use their brains. This is good.
What part convinced you? Her confidence.
But she does question how the film dealt with the morality of war and enhanced interrogation methods.
Any questions?
Storer says the torturous techniques that riddle Bigelow's film skew pretty far from reality.
The U.S. just doesn't do things the way it was shown in the beginning of Zero Dark 30. And I'm not saying that some of those techniques couldn't be considered torture, and certainly you can consider waterboarding torture. But it's not done like that. It does a disservice to my former colleagues, just making them look like a bunch of brutes. It does a disservice to the U.S. government.
And that's one of the many reasons she was excited to team up with two former analysts and director Greg Barker for the HBO documentary Manhunt.
He was going to treat the subject matter just sort of dispassionately, in the sense of not putting any kind of political spin on it, but just letting us tell our stories and then trying to put that story out there. And that's the first time that anybody had ever been willing to do that.
Unlike Zero Dark 30, Manhunt goes back to the early 1990s and puts all the pieces together through 9/11 and then the hunt for bin Laden himself. Zero Dark 30 and the documentary do share one common theme, though, that Cynthia says is crucial to understanding the whole story.
We were really the diggers, the investigators, the putting together of the pieces. And we didn't really have a term for ourselves, but we were often thought of ourselves as sisters in that sense. Like brothers in arms, but we were sisters.
They both tell the stories of war and espionage through the eyes of strong women instead of leading men.
So many women come up to me, and it's been sort of your average working mother, college students, some very high-powered women in New York and Washington now, I can add to that list, who come up and they thank us for our service, and they thank us for talking about the role of women.
What's ironic, though, is how vital female analysts were to the manhunt for bin Laden. What do you think Osama bin Laden would have to say about a group of women being responsible for tracking him for 20 years, being ultimately responsible for his death?
You know, it's funny, it is the supreme irony, right? Women should be pregnant and barefoot and covered up and in the kitchen, and here they are going after him.
Today marks 2 years since Navy SEAL Team 6 raided that compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. And although Storer wasn't actively involved in that aspect of the manhunt, she said her first thought was,
good, we got him, but then there's no time to celebrate because your brain automatically goes to the next thing, which is, okay, who's going to take over from him? Are there going to be revenge attacks? What's the organization going to be like now?
Is the American public still at risk?
You know the war isn't over. We've just managed to kill a leader. And that's not a just, and it's important. The game is going to change, but how is it going to change?
Al-Qaeda is an international terrorist network founded by Osama bin Laden in the late 1980s and is still active today. Tara Grimsley plays 3 sports at Dillon High School. It's no surprise to see her starring in center field for the softball team or even playing basketball for the Lady Wildcats. But it's a 3rd sport that really makes her unique. She's the place kicker for the football team.
Whenever my brother was kicking, they all told me, well, when he gets done graduating, you're gonna be old enough to kick for us. So, I mean, I took it as a joke. And then J.V. Martin, Coach McLaurin was out there with us, and they had a football. He put it on the ground for me to kick since TJ was the kicker, and I kicked it, and actually, first one I've ever kicked, and it was good and everything. Kicked it pretty high for a girl anyway.
But this isn't a PR stunt. She's a key contributor for one of the top-ranked teams in Class 2A football, impressing both her coach and the team.
Well, you know, she's just like another player. She'll tell you right quick, we treat her just like we do the rest of the players. She's fit in real well and done a great job for us.
A lot of teams don't have a girl, but we all respect her and we treat her as one of the guys on the team.
And she's not just a pretty face on the sidelines. Tara has kicked 25 of 28 extra points, including 20 consecutive PATs at one point.
Well, we brought her out last year, and she kicked for us a little bit last year, and we knew she was kind of out there, but you can see, the more she kicks, the better she gets.
Now, standing on the field with these big guys can be a bit intimidating, but for the Dillon Wildcats, having Tara Grimsley as your place kicker, it's like having your little sister on the team.
At the end of the games, I walk with her and make sure nobody messes with her, and I make sure none of the guys try anything, but none of them do. Everybody respects her and treats her like a teammate.
Yeah, I have a lot of brothers on this team, every one of them.
Surrounded by giants on the gridiron, Tara still manages a little female flair. And with that long blonde hair hanging over the back of her number 68 jersey,
it won't even fit in the helmet, so.
The pink mouth guard,
I just wanted to stand out a little bit more, I guess, since I'm the girl.
And her pregame ritual.
No makeup for me.
Either way, her parents are hoping those neon cleats will help her avoid the sometimes brutal hits.
We tell kick and just run backwards, but her natural instinct, I'm sure, if something was to happen, she'll probably go after one of those players. That's just her natural instinct.
You haven't gotten hit yet?
Not yet. I got a big line, so I'm not worried about it. If it happens, it happens. The boys got my back, though.
Her teammates are making sure that she won't ever have to make that tackle. And the Wildcats hope those bright shoes will keep putting points on the board all the way to a 2A state championship this year. Alex Heaton, News Channel 15.